Well, hello everyone. Here we are. It is still Mental Health Week, and I am joined from Sam Miller, who is a registered psychotherapist and trauma specialist all the way from Ontario, Canada. And I wanted to interview Sam because we had such an enlightening conversation, such a great conversation this summer, talking about trauma and how important it is to be aware of it for ourselves, but also how it impacts others. And so, Sam, I would love to hear you just speak to why you think trauma is such an important something for people to know about, especially right now in COVID.
So one of the things that we know about trauma is that trauma, when it affects us, it can be long lasting. And what we mean by that is if an event is traumatic, and again, trauma is going to be different for each individual. What might be traumatic for me might not be traumatic for you based on personality, upbringing, experiences, etc. When a traumatic event happens, it leaves a mark. It's what we say in the trauma business, you're fired and wired. It kind of dictates moving forward how you interact, how you react to a lot of different situations. And so sometimes we're affected by trauma and we're aware, sometimes we're not, because it could be something that's happened a long time ago. And then every once in a while, it will affect us. And what's happening now with COVID and with the pandemic we're in is both individual and for businesses and employers and employees. We're in a situation we've never been before. And the overlying or common theme for everyone is a lack of control, right? We all thought, here we are, October, we'd be past this, and now we're going into another wave potentially. Though what's happened over the months has given us hope with treatments and etc. But it's still that sense of lack of or a lack of control, and trauma is the ultimate lack of control. And so making people aware of trauma, how we react to it, how it's affecting all of us in various ways, is the beginning of dealing with it, working through it, and gaining back control. And that's really an important message of in all this lack of control. There is a lot in our lives, A, that we can show gratitude for, and B, that we can have control over and take charge. So that's why I think it's really vitally important at this point in time to really be dealing with this and focusing on it, because I know many people have reached out to me and said, I'm reacting in ways that I never thought I would react, and I'm trying to figure out why, and this is part of why.
Yeah, I think I don't think many of us really stop to think about the magnitude of what we are going through, what we've been through, how we react to that, and how our body keeps the score of the stress that all of this has put on every single one of us to varying capacities. And I would love for you to dive a little bit into this idea of control and how that relates to trauma. Does my need to control mean that, like, I'm experiencing trauma? Am I trying to control it, or is my methods of controlling is that what's causing trauma? I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
It's actually a combination of what a couple of the points that you were saying. When I talk about control, I'm not necessarily talking about if I'm a controlling individual in general. What I mean by control is that often human beings are creatures of habit. We like our routines because routines, control, give us a sense of comfort and a sense of knowing what we can do, what we can do. Human beings, like anybody, like all animals, we don't like that uncertainty. And knowing those routines that I normally have and can rely on it give me a sense of safety and comfort. And now those aren't there for a lot of people, not only in the can we go out, can we not go out, are we at risk of catching this and health issues, but also in what was our daily routine for so many people, which was get up in the morning, bye to the family, that 9 to 5 or whatever your workday was, right? That's all changed. right? So how do we redefine what we can control and what we can control? And you talk about how I deal with that control. Is how I deal with that control causing trauma? I wouldn't say it's causing you trauma. It may be perpetuating that trauma because you're often as a psychotherapist, I have people coming to talk to me about losing control or trying to deal with stress and being all stressed out. And I ask them to make a list of what's possible stressors, the ones you can control and the ones you can't control. So what you can control is my appearance, my finances from time to time, other things. But there's a lot that I can't control. The weather, the economy sometimes, whether people do or do not like me. And I find the people who are the most stressed out are the ones who are trying to change things that they cannot affect change on. So what's happening in effect is they're spending all this effort and energy on something that they're not going to be able to change. And when you couple that with trauma of the pandemic, what's happening is we're just draining our energy, right? And we're not dealing with things properly, or we're not even acknowledging that trauma. Um, if we could get back some of that control in terms of what can we control, right? I can't control the weather, whether people like me or not. What I can control in that situation is how much am I going to let it bother me, right? And
Yeah.
that's the positive energy. You talk about stress and you talk about the body keeping the score, which is a famous title of a book about stress, right? Um, Stress doesn't have to be negative. If our mindset is stress causes us motivation, stress causes us to be better caregivers. One of the things that's happened, which I think is wonderful in this pandemic, is there have been so many acts of kindness. Right? There's actually an author, a Dr. Kelly McGonigal, who talks about the upside of stress and talks about stress. One of the stress reactions is what we call tend and befriend. And to tend and befriend is we find that people going through difficult traumatic situations, if they can convert that into taking care of others, acts of kindness, they're far better off in coping and dealing with that stress. So that's wonderful, on an individual basis. On a business, workplace, executive, decision maker type of issues and concerns, you have a lot of management executives who are now in a very difficult position and making some very difficult choices. That's stressful and that's traumatic. And I'm not even sure how many of them are addressing the trauma and the stress of it because their role is to take care of everybody, right? And so even individuals like that need to understand you can still be that really great caregiver and decision maker all at the same time. You're a CEO, you're an upper level management because you are good at making decisions. Let's talk about managing the stress as you do. They're not diametrically opposed, right? We need to be able to deal with both of those. And I think if we acknowledge that and then we can take care of what we can control in this pandemic, we'll be far better off going through it and coming out of it on the other side.
I think that's incredible. I think I love how you empower, you're creating a powerful person instead of a traumatized person. You're reminding us that, yeah, there's lots that's out of control, but there's always something we can control. And I love your point of view on stress. We we talk about stress and we just assume that it's wrong. I really like your perspective there, and how when we serve others and give, that empowers us. One of the things we've noticed at Wellness Innovate is that, well, first of all, when we would give over COVID, give our time, the free webinars, coming alongside businesses, I I feel like I flew through COVID. I mean, we had moments, but they were moments, and I felt like it was an opportunity, and it drove my purpose and meaning. And I can't say I ever had a low, and I mean, I certainly don't want to downplay anyone else's experience, but I think that's because we gave, doing exactly what you said. And I noticed the same thing among other business owners who use the opportunity to rise above and to serve and to acts of kindness. Like those are the ones that were thriving. I think you're so dead on, Sam. I love this.
It's very interesting. When I was dealing with the van attack that happened in Toronto a number of years ago, and I spent quite a bit of time dealing with organizations who were on that street and witnessed the van attack, what hit me really strongly was when I would go out to various companies and deal with the employees who were there, who witnessed it, who were affected by it. It was a common theme of a lot of individuals. And yes, there were a number of them that were upset and they might have lost friends or concerned about. But one of the strong themes was I couldn't help more. I wanted to help more. And that I walked away from that with a sense of positivity and hope in humanity, right? We just had a horrible thing happen, and what were people concerned about? Not themselves, but how could they have helped other people? And I think it's a really valid point, and I think it really is working in helping people through COVID. I know it does for me. I know it does for my family, and I think it's a very, very strong emotion and a very strong stress response. And befriend. I think it's very, very positive.
Hmm. Oh, that's great.
And it can work. It can work, like I said, not only for individuals, but as you've witnessed, for organizations and leaders as well.
Yes, yes. Yeah, 100%. No, I love this, Sam. What advice would you give to business owners, entrepreneurs, organizations going forward? What would you want them to know if they were in your office right now, concerned about mental health, trauma? What would be one thing, like they could not leave if you didn't tell them this one thing? What would that be?
Well, it would be a couple things that I would tell them before I'd let them leave. Number one is I want people to normalize emotions. What that means, sorry about that. What that means is that understand you're going to be affected. Don't pretend you're having a bad day or not having a bad day. Acknowledge the emotions. Emotions are there for a reason. They help us work through whatever difficulties. There's a psychologist who talks about the pathway of emotions, and there's one pathway. So if you don't deal with the negative and the difficult feelings and emotions, that pathway is blocked for the gratitude and the joy and the resilience. So we have to deal with those. It's normal. The emotions are normal. What's happening is the abnormality. So that's one. Number two is education. Understand mental health. I mean, and this is so relevant in Mental Health Awareness Week, right?
Mhm.
Understand the difficulties that individuals have. If you're an organization, create a supportive, healthy work environment. Don't stigmatize mental health. Acknowledge it, encourage, right? Because if I'm an individual who's got some mental health challenges and I'm in an organization that doesn't understand me, well, I'm not opening up to anybody. And I'm kind of suffering in silence, which is another level of suffering in silence on top of isolation, on top of pandemic. We want to create that open and welcome, healthy work environment for individuals to be able to benefit from. So that's another thing. And the third thing I would say to a business owner is make sure you're taking care of yourself as well. Right? So many business owners and executives are very selfless and they really care about their people. I think long gone, or hopefully long gone, is the image of the CEO in the ivory tower who doesn't care. I don't think that's as relevant today as it once was. You have some wonderfully involved and caring owners and CEOs and executives and leaders, and they're givers and they're fixers and they're very selfless and they take, it's whenever I go out on the trauma to a place like that, the CEO says to me, take care of everybody else. So I'm going to give you the airplane analogy, right? When you're about to take off and the flight attendant says in the case of extreme turbulence, the oxygen mask will come down. If you're traveling with a child, put the oxygen mask over yourself before your child. It's the same thing here. Right? as a business owner, as a leader, as an executive, if you're not taking care of yourself, you're not going to be the best leader and friend and mentor, etc. Right? Whether it's in a relationship with a spouse, with a child, or whether it's in a relationship with your employees. So those are the three things: the normalizing emotions, right? The creating a healthy and well workplace for mental health, and mental health awareness, and destigmatization of mental health, and then self-care. Those are three vital components that any business owner and executive should. And also, I guess maybe one more, you're not Superman. As much as we all think we are, reach out. I know myself, I'm a psychotherapist. I had a couple of weeks where I wasn't doing well because I had spent all my time in COVID taking care of everybody else. And then I had my COVID meltdown. And I know to call my colleagues, and I have some people who I'm very close with, and we talked it through. Right? I'm the trauma guy. I could sit here and say, hey, it's not going to affect me, but that would be silly, because it is going to. So reach out for help if you need to as well. So those are the things that I would come
So good. That's
suggest.
powerful. Guys, if the psychotherapist needs to reach out, then surely the rest of us, we do too. I love that. You've just made that really normal. No matter who we are, we think, oh, if I was an expert, I wouldn't have to. But that was very powerful. I love what you've shared. I feel like we have got a personal counseling session, really, yeah, just in these
My pleasure.
minutes. It's beautiful. Sam, thank you for your time. Thank you for everything you did over COVID and how you invested so much and continue to invest so much. We are big fans at Wellness Innovate. We're fans of what you do. We appreciate you and all your work.
Thank you
And
very much.
yeah, we just wish
And
you
thank you
all
so
the
much
best.
for the opportunity and for this new friendship.
Yes, you bet. You bet. And everyone, I will include Sam's contact info in the notes of this interview so that you can reach out to Sam if you are needing extra support. So thanks again, Sam.
Thank you.